long hair. Darn it. Anyways, what's wrong with these games? They're awesome!
So yeah, the Castlevania reboot gets a bad rep for being boring and bad, and the complaints mainly focuses on story and gameplay.
Okay. Let me stop there because that sentence was difficult to say without losing my mind. You're telling me that you don't like an action-adventure game with a riveting story that subverts the player's expectations and have a satisfying combat with a growth system? Then you don't like the God of War games when they came out, or you don't like Shadow of the Colossus, or even this one! Well, actually, this one's up for debate because there's a lot of people that didn't like it either, but I don't know why, but you know, that's a story for another day. Alright, let me share with you my opinion and explain to you why I believe the Lords of Shadow games are great. Let me start with the stories of each one.
In the first game, the world is plunged into darkness. Night creatures roam the lands, wreaking havoc and preying on humanity. Many believe that God and heaven have abandoned the world, but a very few believe that some sort of curse has separated heaven from earth. The Brotherhood of Light, in their attempts to find answers and culling the Night Horde, send Gabriel Belmont, a man who lost his wife Marie to these dark forces, yet she may be the one to hold the answers the Brotherhood seeks. In his quest, he learns of a prophecy known by the founders of the Brotherhood of Light. A pure-hearted warrior will defeat the Lords of Shadow, evil beings of great power and influence, and gain their powers to overcome all evil and reunite heaven with earth. With this in mind, Gabriel sets out to the lands of each Lord of Shadow to carry on with the prophecy. The land of the Lycans, ruled by Cornell, the land of the vampires, ruled by Carmilla, and the land of the necromancers, ruled by Death.
Throughout his journey, Gabriel faces many dangers, he becomes stronger, and learns many truths that I wish I could share with you, but this is a game that is best experienced when played. All I will say, and that's because it pertains to the sequels, is that Gabriel becomes Dracula, and the DLC shows how he became the Man of Myth.
Anyways, let's proceed with Mirror of Fate. The story takes place many years after the events of the first game, where we play as Trevor Belmont. Yes, you heard that right, Trevor Belmont, son of Gabriel and Marie, who was conceived before Gabriel's journey and Marie's death, but was unknown to Gabriel as the Brotherhood of Light took him away as a baby to protect him from the fate that would eventually befall Gabriel, as was foretold by the Mirror of Fate, a relic that can show the past and the true fate of anyone who looks upon it. As Trevor grew up and became a warrior of the Brotherhood and a family man, he was told of the truth of his lineage and set out to rid the world of his father Dracula. However, his endeavors would eventually turn to failure as Dracula bested him in combat. With his final breath, Trevor reveals to Dracula who he is and, after the Mirror of Fate shows Dracula who Trevor really is, attempts to save the life of his son, turning him into Alucard.
Yes, what were once two completely different characters in the original game, they are now one and the same. I like this.
Years after this event, Simon Belmont, son of Trevor and Sypha, travels to Dracula's castle in search of revenge for the death of his parents. As he arrives, he is guided by a trinket Trevor gave to him before his departure, and a spirit that is linked to said trinket to find Trevor's combat cross and the whereabouts of Dracula himself. All the while, Alucard, who has awakened from his slumber, explores the castle and helps Simon go through some of the castle's dangerous machinations. Eventually, Simon and Alucard find Dracula and face off against him together and defeat him. But Alucard has a feeling that Dracula has not been truly defeated, and he will eventually return.
And that's Mirror of Fate. The game is short, but the story is straightforward, just like the classics. And lastly, Lords of Shadow 2.
The year is 2057. After a long sleep, Dracula awakens in a strange new world. Or is it new? Time has long passed since his reign of hatred and vengeance, and humanity and their cities have moved forward, progressed, and advanced. After getting his bearings straight, he is greeted by his old friend, Death, who still roams the earth doing his business. Man, I'm having a hard time not spoiling stuff anyways. Death welcomes Dracula back to the world and tells him of his plight. The children of their old foe, or the Acolytes, are planning to bring him back to the world, and he doesn't want that to happen, for there will be hell on earth if he does return. In exchange for Dracula's assistance in this, Death offers him the true death he so desires by using the Vampire Killer, Dracula's old weapon when he was still Gabriel. Dracula reluctantly agrees, as he does want to destroy his old foe once and for all, and wishes for eternal rest. And so he begins his journey by looking for and defeating the 3 Acolytes. Raisa, owner of a pharmaceutical company who developed a virus that turns people into demons. Nurgle, corporate head of the world's largest weapon manufacturer. And Guido, priest of the church that follows Dracula's old foe. In his journey, Dracula also encounters an apparition of young Trevor who takes him into a manifestation of Dracula's castle so that he can regain his powers, assist the castle's inhabitants, and face the deepest part of himself.
As with the first Lords of Shadow game, this one I strongly recommend you play as well, so that way you can get the full experience so that you can enjoy it yourself. Now that I'm done giving a summary of all the games, here's my opinion on them. They're great. That's it.
Alright, I'll tell you more. So, Castlevania has been a game enjoyed and loved by me since childhood, and it was one of those few games that got me intrigued into researching the timeline of the games. So when this new reboot came rolling, I was excited to see a new 3D Castlevania game and the direction the game was going with this new story. The moment came when I saw the ending of the first game, what I thought was going to be a different take on how the founding Belmont was going to take an oath against the evils of the night. Instead, I was shown something unexpected, something that never crossed my mind. The first Belmont became Dracula and ruler of the Night Horde. This subversion of expectation was so shocking to me that it took me a while to take it in, only to then welcome this new change. And right there, that's the key to this, subversion of expectation. The story took a whole different direction from what was initially established long ago by the previous entries, giving the series an interesting and darker twist and potential for further storytelling. It also took conventional character development and threw it out the window by making Gabriel the tragic hero where the answers he sought made him plummet into the abyss and became the example of live long enough to become the villain. As my other self mentioned in the Mortal Kombat 1 video, reboots, if done right, can bring a fresh new look to a game that has been enjoyed by many for years. And it is a sentiment that I agree with when it comes to the Lords of Shadow reboot, as it dared to do something different and interesting, yet keep some of the elements of the originals that made it memorable to the fans, me being one of those fans. On top of that, the story was well told with proper pacing, plot advancing revelations, dramatic and sometimes cheesy voice acting. It's charming, sue me. Characters who further Gabriel's descent into darkness, and an ending that fits his tragic circumstance.
Who doesn't like tragic backstories nowadays, huh? I mean, a lot of media is full of it. But anyways, let's wrap up with gameplay, which I think is the dumbest complaint I have ever heard about this game at all.
Seriously, what's wrong with the gameplay? If you have played any of these fine games, then you know what you're getting yourself into. It is your traditional action-adventure game where you defeat hordes of creatures and or giant boss monsters with a main weapon and sub-weapons, pull off long strings of combos, and learn new skills the more you progress. Simple, easy, effective. The gameplay also includes puzzles, platforming, scavenger hunts, and challenges to earn more experience and get stronger. Again, where's the problem? Well, according to the complaints, these are monotonous combat and garbage QuickTime events.
Are you people freaks?
Monotonous combat? Whoever said this must not have played a video game at all. Granted, there are some video games where combat is boring, like Forspoken, and I think that's where the misinterpretation is happening. Monotonous and boring are two different things that do not relate to each other. In essence, Lords of Shadow is monotonous because combat-wise it has players beating down mobs of creatures and bosses with weapons and or magic, but it is not boring because the game offers a good variety on how the players can defeat said creatures and bosses. Different maneuvers, a variety of sub-weapons, even using different characters are all part of the variety the game offers to make it fun and, sometimes, break monotony. Otherwise, if monotonous combat was a bad thing, then Call of Duty would not have taken off, the Final Fantasy series would have perished in the NES, and the highly acclaimed Castlevania games would have been considered bad. QuickTime events also offer variety in gameplay, but apparently people think they're trash. This one I don't understand the hate. People like to harp on QuickTime events like it's a blight on video games by calling it a lazy and immersion-breaking design, but a lot of the highly acclaimed video games have
QuickTime events!
Alright, let's do this experiment. Look at your library of games right now, and I am certain that you'll find a game you'll love that has QuickTime events. Most notably, God of War and Resident Evil 4. Here's the thing. QTEs are not hurting Lords of Shadow gameplay, it instead adds more immersion to the gameplay. Is it simple and watered down? Sadly, yes. The game was released in a time when devs were asked to make gameplay of their games simple for casual gamers to get into, and Lords of Shadow was one who fell victim to this, so QTEs were not as immersive as in God of War or other titles from the previous generation. Is it bad and cumbersome? No, people just like to complain about a game mechanic that only serves to interact with the game's world in a different way. So relax, it's just a game mechanic, is not hurting anybody.
And there you go, the Lords of Shadow games don't suck. They are just misunderstood by the masses and you believe them. Shame on you. All right. All right, what? Hey, how's it going? Well, look what the Shadow dragged in. Good to see you, Zankichi. Like your new duds, man. New duds? What are you talking about? Yeah, that's right. I got them in your colors, too. By the way, now that I got you here, can you do me a solid and get a freaking haircut? I mean, this gets in the way. I can't see, or it's everywhere. Well, if you're gonna have the mane, you have to brush it back. That's how it looks best, not whatever it is that you're doing here with your hair. Hey man, there's nothing wrong with having short hair, less shedding, less maintenance, and it gets out of the way. Anyways, I'm pretty sure you're not here to compare fashion statements with one another. Are you going to take over? I mean, there's still work to be done with the balance. You're right. No, I'm not here to take over yet. I know there's still work to be done with the balance. I'm just here to give you a reminder. There's a promise to keep. Oh, right. The promise. Okay. I mean, I understand that, and I keep my promises, so... But it's going to be a long project. I mean, 4 games, that's a bit. So, while that happens, I'm still gonna have my fun. No, and that's completely understandable. You're having a lot of fun, and I'm not gonna take that away from you. But, just gonna let you know, I may pop up at any time. And when it happens, you can't complain. Alright, I understand. When it happens, it will happen, and I will not complain. But while it happens, I will continue to have my fun and put the balance back in place. Sure thing. Keep having fun. In the meantime, I know where you're going next. And remember, Kojin, at any time. Alright, Zankichi? He left. Well, I got words.